Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Good morning, I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Amy Morris. Here are the stories we're following today.
We begin with the highly anticipated earnings report that Wall Street has been waiting for from Nvidia. Because of its leadership in AI training chips, Nvidia's market capitalization has ballooned to around $1.7 trillion. Amy Wu Silverman of RBC Capital Markets says the report after today's close could be critical for the markets.
Those results are what we saw kind of similar to last year. It still has a while to run. However, if, let's say, the results are quite disappointing, you can see that call skew sucked out of the market pretty quickly. And then the question there becomes, if this is disappointing to investors, what happens next? Do you actually see a pickup in the downside? Do you see a pickup in hedging? That's a major inflection for the market. Or do you see people still say, we like these stocks?
RBC's Amy Wu Silverman. Now, according to options positioning, Nvidia investors may have almost $200 billion riding on today's results. Prices for short-term calls and puts imply a more than 10% move in the chipmaker's shares after the report.
Nvidia is, of course, part of the Magnificent Seven, which have propelled equity markets to record highs. But now it appears investors are cutting back. Goldman Sachs analyzed more than 700 hedge funds with $2.6 trillion of gross equity positions. 6 of the Mag 7 stocks saw a decrease in exposure. The only one that saw an increase was Amazon.
And speaking of Amazon, Amy, those shares are up 1% this morning. The e-commerce giant is about to be added to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And we get the story from Bloomberg's Kimberly Adams.
Amazon will replace Walgreens Boots Alliance in the Dow on Monday. The inclusion in the index is another milestone in the retailer's rapid expansion. The company was founded in 1994 as an online bookseller. It now sells goods of all types and runs the world's largest cloud computing business. In fact, Amazon is the second largest private sector employer in the U.S. behind Walmart. The absence of Amazon and a slew of big tech firms from the Dow spurred the blue chip index to underperform peers last year. The tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 climbed more than 50%, while the Dow rose 13%. Kimberly Adams, Bloomberg Radio.
Thanks, Kim. While Amazon takes its place in the blue chip index, founder Jeff Bezos is selling more of his stake in the company. The billionaire unloaded another 14 million shares worth about $2.5 billion. That brings his total cash out to $8.5 billion. Bezos announced a plan to sell up to 50 million shares of Amazon earlier this month. He finished the transaction in just 9 trading days.
Keeping things in the C-suite, Amy, Citigroup has boosted the pay of CEO Jane Fraser by about 6% to a total of $26 million. The increase comes after Fraser initiated what's billed as the largest reworking of Citigroup in decades. The moves are designed to propel the firm from a banking underdog to competitive with its more profitable peers.
And staying in the banking sector, shares of HSBC are down more than 7% in Europe. The bank reported fourth quarter profit that plunged 80%. HSBC took a $3 billion impairment in the fourth quarter on its holding in China's Bank of Communications. CEO Noel Quinn says the payment will have minimal consequences.
I just want to make clear that has no impact on our capital position of any significance. It does not prohibit distribution because it's non-capital impactful. It is a technical accounting issue. And I also want to reiterate, we have strong confidence in the China economy. We believe there are huge opportunities ahead. And we believe that our partnership with BOCOM has been a good partnership for 20 years, and that status has not changed.
HSBC CEO Noel Quinn also announced a $2 billion share buyback.
On the economic front today, Amy, we may get more clues on the future of U.S. interest rates. This afternoon, the Federal Reserve releases minutes from its last meeting. We get a preview from Bloomberg's Michael McKee.
January's Fed meeting began a concentrated, if not coordinated, effort by Fed officials to push back against market pricing of an early rate cut. The minutes of the meeting may offer hints at why. What did the policymakers see in the economy then? Too much strength, building inflation pressures, a too tight labor market? Or was it just an abundance of caution that has proved out as January retail sales came in weak and consumer prices rose? The minutes are always a bit outdated since the Fed policy meeting took place 3 weeks ago, but in this case, clues to the Fed officials' thinking may help investors anticipate when and under what conditions they will finally cut. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Radio.
All right. Thank you, Mike. In deal news this morning, Bloomberg News has learned that buyout firm Thomas Bravo is weighing a sale of J.D. Power for about $8 billion. J.D. Power uses data and analytics to produce rankings and reviews across industries, including automotive, financial services, and healthcare.
And a tie-up between two supermarket giants could be in trouble. Sources tell Bloomberg News the Federal Trade Commission and a group of states are preparing to sue to block the combination of Kroger and Albertsons. We get the details from Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
The suit is expected before February 28th when an agreement not to close the deal between the companies and the FTC expires. The sources say several states are expected to join the suit alongside the federal antitrust enforcers. A Kroger spokeswoman says the company remains in ongoing discussions with the FTC and state regulators and that the merger will lead to lower prices, more union jobs, and broader choices for consumers. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Radio.
Thank you, Charlie. Turning to politics now, more financial trouble could be on the way for Donald Trump. New York Attorney General Letitia James says she is prepared to seize the former president's assets. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter with that story.
James says she'll follow the money if he does not come up with a $350 million plus fine ordered by the judge. She says a decade of crime.
Financial frauds are not victimless crimes. He engaged in this massive amount of fraud, and it wasn't just a simple mistake, a slight oversight. The variations were wildly exaggerated, and the extent of the fraud was staggering.
James refuting the Trump claim that there were no victims. She says financial markets, banks, and citizens were. Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Radio.
Time now to take a look at some of the other stories making news in New York and around the world. And for that, we're joined by Bloomberg's Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Nathan. The FBI is joining the investigation into how many violent crimes nationwide are linked to a suspected multi-state serial attacker taken into custody in Arizona. The 26-year-old man may have targeted sex workers. He allegedly told police about his involvement in a string of assaults on women in the Phoenix area, Florida, and as well as a deadly attack in New York. NYPD Chief of Detectives Joe Kinney says the victim killed in Manhattan was found inside a hotel room earlier this month.
He informs them that he is wanted for homicide in New York City and tells the cops that they should Google Soho 54 Hotel.
The suspect, Rad Al-Mansouri, is believed to have arrived in New York City in late January. Later, credit card use indicates the purchase of a plane ticket to Arizona, where he allegedly committed at least 2 more crimes. 2 men have been charged with murder in last week's shooting after the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade. According to court documents, the men were strangers who pulled out guns and began firing within seconds of starting an argument. 1 person was killed and about 24 others were injured. New York City police are doubling down on stopping more pedestrians in 2023 than the year prior. Pedestrian stops fell out of favor in New York City after a federal court in 2013 ruled that the NYPD stop and frisk practices were unconstitutional. But that trend appears to be reversing under Mayor Eric Adams, who took office in 2022. President Joe Biden's administration announced that more than 150,000 borrowers will receive $1.2 billion in student loan forgiveness under a program unveiled in January seeking to provide relief for Americans who had been making payments for at least a decade. The move wipes out loans for those who borrowed less than $12,000 for their higher education. A new study finds 1 in 4 people who attended college earn less than high school graduates 10 years later. Michael Iskowitz is president of the HEA group, which conducted the survey.
Out of the about 4,000 institutions in the study, 852 of them, or about 22% of colleges, showed the majority of students earning below a $15 minimum wage.
Michael Iskowitz with HEA says most of the people who earn less than high school grads went to for-profit colleges, but about 14% attended public colleges. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
Thanks, Michael. Time now for the Bloomberg Sports Update, brought to you by Tri-State Audi. Here's John Stashower.
Thanks, Nathan. UConn Huskies dominant in winning last year's NCAA tournament. They've been dominant this season. They went to Omaha riding a 14-game winning streak. Most recently, they won by 28 over Marquette, who was ranked 4th in the country. UConn's number 1. The vote this week was unanimous. But the Creighton Blue Jays ranked 15th themselves. They've won 20 games, and they crushed UConn 85-66. They stormed the court after the school's first ever win over the team ranked number 1. The UConn coach is Dan Hurley.
You haven't lost in 2+ months, and this doesn't happen to us very often. So, yeah, I mean, we were definitely stunned. This wasn't the game we expected. We knew this was a dangerous game and a quality opponent and one of the better teams in the country. But we didn't expect this to happen.
Next up for Creighton is a game Sunday at St. John's. The Red Storm have lost 8 of 10. Their players recently severely criticized by their coach Rick Pitino. St. John's plays tonight at Georgetown. At the Garden, Rangers scored once in each period, got 41 saves from Igor Shesterkin, won their 8th in a row, 3-1 over Dallas. It's the Rangers' longest winning streak since 2016. 2 more wins, they tied the club record of 10. That's happened twice, 1973 and in 1940, when they won the Stanley Cup. As any Ranger fan knows, they've only won it once since. They play tomorrow at New Jersey. The Devils were in Washington. The Capitals won 6-2. Alex Ovechkin scored twice. Islanders a 5-4 overtime win at Pittsburgh. Matthew Slater has retired. Special teams standout for the Patriots. Went to 10 Pro Bowls. He was a Pats captain 13 of his 16 seasons. The one-time Mets shortstop Ahmed Rosario has signed with Tampa Bay. At Yankee spring training, all eyes on Aaron Judge's big toe. Hurt it last June at Dodger Stadium. Never had surgery. And Judge said yesterday that to avoid flare-ups, he'll need constant maintenance on the toe for the rest of his career. John Stashower, Bloomberg Sports. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. Now let's turn back to markets and our focus on earnings this morning. We're watching shares of HSBC. They are lower by more than 7% in London, and that move comes after the lender reported earnings, showing a fourth quarter profit falling 80% after unexpected charges on its holdings in China's Bank of Communications, BOCOM. HSBC also announced a $2 billion share buyback, but the bank's CEO Noel Quinn says the BOCOM charge was a technical accounting issue and won't impact capital. Noel Quinn spoke with Bloomberg's Francine Lacroix. Let's listen into part of that conversation now.
Well, I'm very pleased with the fact that we've been able to report 30 billion of PBT, which is obviously a record. But also, I'm very pleased with the return on tangible equity. We've been working hard for the past 4 years to make sure we deliver mid-teens returns, and we did that last year. You know, before material notable items, we had a return on tangible equity of 15.6%. I'm also really pleased with the dividends we've announced, 61 cents, which is the highest dividend for the full year since 2008. And we completed $7 billion of buyback, and we announced another $2 billion, up to $2 billion buyback this year. So I'm really pleased with that. Strong capital generation, and I believe with a CET1 ratio of 14.8%, we've got strong potential future capital distribution as well. In the fourth quarter, we did have some noise in the numbers. We had 3 principal items that pulled down the profit. The first one was we rebooked the loss on sale of our French operation now that we completed that transaction. It's neutral for the year because we took a credit on that in Q1 and we've taken a charge in Q4, so that nets each other out and neutral. There was an adjustment for hyperinflation in Argentina driven by the devaluation that took place. That's really a technical issue. And then the third issue, technical issue, was BOCOM. We have had an investment in BOCOM for 20 years. Every quarter we have to do a valuation in use test. We did that again this quarter, updated the model. And it compares the value in use to the carrying value, and the value in use dropped below, and that resulted in a $3 billion charge. I just want to make clear that has no impact on our capital position of any significance. It does not prohibit distribution because it's non-capital impactful. It is a technical accounting issue. And I also want to reiterate, we have strong confidence in the China economy. We believe there are huge opportunities ahead, and we believe that our partnership with BOCOM has been a good partnership for 20 years, and that status has not changed.
And Noel, given what you've just explained, are there any large asset sales ahead? Is there anything else that you're thinking, either that you need to sell off, or actually that there could be some kind of accounting concern?
Well, I think we've got the final leg of our disposal of Canada to come at the end of Q1. That will be a big sale completion. We're on track for that at the end of Q1. That will allow us to, as we've already announced, first use of proceeds. We would like to use the first use of proceeds as a special dividend of 21 cents. We continue to look at the portfolio to make sure the portfolio is strategically correctly positioned and no businesses are underperforming. But I think we've done the material transactions, but we will continue to adapt and change if we feel as though part of the portfolio is not strategic or is underperforming. I also want to recap on Q4. If you take the profit, the underlying profit before material notables, Q4 report would have been a 7.3 billion PBT, which is well up on the prior quarter in 2022.
No, just going back to some of your potential significant sales, are you also close to identifying any potential new bolt-on acquisitions?
We keep looking at bolt-ons, and we've done quite a few. I was really pleased that we've announced the acquisition of Citibank's wealth business in China. That follows two other investments we put into China recently, taken our shareholding in our insurance joint venture from 50% to 100%, and the securities joint venture from 50% to 90%. So you can see our confidence in China is still strong, and we're investing, and we've done 3 bolt-ons there. We'll continue to look for bolt-ons, particularly in our wealth management business. We believe buying additional product capability, specialism, or distribution capability would be interesting, but we'll only announce anything on that as and when we got a transaction to complete.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Today, your morning brief on the stories making news from Wall Street to Washington and beyond.
Look for us on your podcast feed by 6 a.m. Eastern each morning on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.
You can also listen live each morning starting at 5 a.m. Wall Street time on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, Bloomberg 99.1 in Washington, Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, and Bloomberg 960 in San Francisco.
Our flagship New York station is also available on your Amazon Alexa devices. Just say, Alexa, play Bloomberg 1130.
Plus, listen coast to coast on the Bloomberg Business app, SiriusXM, the iHeartRadio app, and on Bloomberg.com. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Amy Morris. Join us again tomorrow morning for all the news you need to start your day right here on Bloomberg Daybreak.